I would be very similar if I'm the seller, because I'm very transparent with all my employees. So I probably would tell them if I was looking to sell a business, but they didn't want anybody knowing they were selling until it happened, because they just didn't want to cause any, I guess, worries or doubts or anything.
If you are looking to sell in your business or whatever, I recommend, if you don't want the employees talked to have that maintenance schedule, have that, here's how many hours it is. And then if you're buying a business, you need to make sure they write down the serial number for what you're getting so that you can match it up with what you're getting. That way what happened to me doesn't happen to y'all.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the FIP Printing Pros podcast. I'm your host, Josh Steinison. I got my co-host as well here with me, with Chris Lockwood. Today, what you're going to be talking about is we're going to kind of take a little look back on the journey of where I've come from the kind of the beginning of this podcast. We're going to start a little before that, obviously, but really where we're kind of at in the last 3 to 4 months since we've really been kind of on this journey. We've really done a lot and are heading in the direction of doing even more. With what we're trying to do with our growth, and just kind of keep you up to date with that, and just kind of talk about that. So to start, obviously, my partner and I took over First Impressions Printing, would have been December of 2020. So coming in the middle of COVID. So basically we came in, I took over an existing business that was, and again, I've talked about this on other episodes, so I'm going to really just a lot of this
quick recap.
But came in the middle of COVID, obviously dealing with those hurdles that you have to face with all that. All the businesses were facing.
What a time to buy a business.
Well, I got it cheaper.
Yeah.
But also, what I faced as well is there was a lot more issues than what was told to me when I bought it, or equipment that I assumed was working, that ended up not realizing when I took over that it was not working, and couldn't get any money out of it. So basically just had to scrap it, and a lot of things like that. And then obviously jumping into, I owned a company in Nebraska that was promotional apparel. Now jumping into a company that's like printing signs, banners, all that kind of stuff, and mailing services. So learning a little bit more about business. Then fast forward a little bit, and then I'm dealing with supply chain issued.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you real quick. It just popped into my head. When you were buying the business, and you discovered afterwards some of the equipment didn't operate like it was supposed to. Did you have a chance to talk to the employees beforehand, or was that kind of like how did that? Because I know when you buy real estate, you don't necessarily talk to the tenants. You might talk to a few of them, but you don't get to interrogate them and interview them about, hey, what's right, what's wrong. Did you get that opportunity? Or?
So the general manager, which this particular print company, he had been running the company for the last 10 years because the owner had passed away from a heart attack 10 years prior to this, and left the company to his two brothers that lived in two totally different states. And so they had the general manager just running it. So I met with the owner. One of them flew down here, as well as with the general manager. I got to meet with them. However, it wasn't I guess also that is some of my things now. I know when I get into, if I decide to go into other businesses, I'm going to ask a lot more questions.
Yeah.
And make sure what all is working properly 100% instead of assuming that what they're telling me and what's on the equipment list and things like that is all fully operable. So things like that again was my lack of understanding, and well, not even understanding, is just, I guess, trust too. So there's some of that I highly recommend already in my 8 years now in business. I've already learned in the two businesses I've been involved in that you just, handshakes are not everything.
Yeah. Trust but verify.
Yes, unfortunately, I am the type that if I could do business just with a handshake, I would do business with a handshake on everything. Just because I trust myself enough to follow through with whatever I say I'm going to do. But I've also learned on the other side. I had a couple situations where in my other business that I got taken advantage of and things like that from a handshake. And then this obviously, and again, I actually have a great relationship with that owner that I bought it from. I still do. So I don't even know if he even fully realized the equipment wasn't even fully working.
Well, that's why I asked about the
like,
employees, because they're the ones that's going to know. And
yeah.
And I think if you don't know to ask the questions,
correct.
Would you even do it? It's like, just looking around the studio right here, there's a ton of equipment. If I was going to buy this, like I wouldn't even know whether or not this microphone was working or whether or not the camera was working.
Just by looking at it.
Just by looking at it, right? So you would assume it works. But the person that would know is the operator. And then, maybe like, hey, does this work? And they'd be like, kind of works sometimes, but sometimes we have issues with it. Okay, what else do we have? But I was just curious if that happened or not. So.
No, so they didn't want me to, because obviously I guess I would be very similar if I'm the seller, like wouldn't want, because I guess I probably, that's not the case because I'm very transparent with all my employees. So I probably would tell them if I was looking to sell a business, but they didn't want anybody knowing they were selling until it happened, because they just didn't want to cause any, I guess, worries or doubts or anything until they really got somebody in place that they could like.
Yeah. I could understand that. And so here's what I would recommend to business owners in that situation, because I've dealt with that with people, buying an RV park, they're like, please don't talk to the residents, because we want to make sure everything. I get that, because everybody gets scared. Oh, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose my job? I might as well quit now. Yeah. Totally get that. If that's the case, my recommendation is if you have equipment, you have those kind of things, you need to document maintenance schedules, how often they're operated. And again, this depends on the equipment. But for example, if you have I remember one of the things that we had issues with at the mobile home park was a lawnmower. And when we went and looked at the park, they had 2 lawnmowers there. One of them was brand new. The other one was shitty, right? It was old. And they were like, yep, it comes with the lawnmower. Well, we didn't check and say which one. So which one do you think the owners took with them? Yeah. They took the brand new one, right? So if you are looking at selling your business or whatever, I recommend, if you don't want the employees talked to have that maintenance schedule, have that, here's how many hours it is. And then if you're buying a business, you need to make sure they write down the serial number for what you're getting so that you can match it up with what you're getting. That way what happened to me doesn't happen to y'all. So anyway, I just wanted to.
Well, what I would even say too is that what I would recommend, okay, all right, you don't want me to talk to employees, I get that. So let's get all the other things knocked out that would hold this up. And now, last thing, okay, I just need to talk to the very last thing. Okay, we've gotten past these hurdles.
All the approvals are done. Yeah. Everything, financing,
appraisals, whatever, all the things are done. Now I'd like to sit down and just talk, just to make sure what do they see, the things, so I can prepare mentally or whatever, that plan ahead what I need to do with the business when I take over.
Absolutely.
And if they really are a serious seller, and they should understand that, and maybe you would find somebody that wouldn't, who knows. But
okay, so anyway, back to you got the business in Nebraska.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what to do with that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was another thing I didn't mention was, I also had the business still in Nebraska. I was dealing with that, and I ended up selling it in 2022 because it was dividing my attention too much, being Florida here, and then Nebraska. I had a business there, and me being here in Florida now, it was really tough. I'm such a hands-on owner, which is part of my problem too, is because I am a hands-on owner, and not to the point like I don't micromanage or nothing like that. I just I get my hands too involved into the things, as far as then I get too much put on my plate, and then I can't do the things I really need to focus on. And so that's where it was very difficult for me having my Nebraska business there, and I just couldn't run it the way, because also I put such an effect on my business being involved and how I want things done a certain way. And again, not a micromanage side of things, because I have a procedure I want done, and I just want people to follow it. And however they get it accomplished usually is not a big deal to me. I really don't care, just as long as it gets done. But that's hard to do when you're multiple states
Yeah.
away. And also I'm very involved in the community sales and things like that, it's tough to be involved when you're not there. So that was a difficult thing that I dealt with, but then I ended up selling that off. Didn't make any money off of it. I pretty much just, as long as my loan got paid off with, that I had for the business loan, that's all I cared about. It was basically my stepping stone to get to the business I'm at now, which is a much larger business in the state. That, as much as I love Nebraska and the people there, I love being in Florida with all the options that are here, the sports, all the things, the ocean. Met my amazing wife here, so obviously Florida holds a special place in my heart now. Nebraska will always be home, but I'm making this my home now. But after that, like I said, going back to supply chain issues was the thing I really faced. That was one of the hardest things, honestly. Crazy enough to think that would cost such, but for our business, paper was even so hard to get a hold of. That was it was putting such a focus between me and one other person that handled the ordering. We were like literally, it was almost a daily task to figure out how we were going to get jobs done for customers. And I was having to have communication with them like, hey, I know normally this would be on glossy paper. Are you okay with this or something like that? And thankfully, all the customers, they were dealing with supply chain issues on their side.
Problems, yeah.
So it was a pretty easy transitional thing for them to accept whatever I could get my hands on. So that was a key. There was obviously, then I bought the building. I don't even know if I even talked about that honestly on the other,
Can't remember.
on the other podcast, but it was a great thing in the beginning because I went from a $10,000 lease to $8,200 when I bought the building as a loan, and in that loan I also got $300,000 worth of equipment that I needed to do to expand what I could do in house for like signage and things like that.
Is that where the flatbeds came from?
Correct. The flatbed, the wide format, and the cutter.
Yeah.
All of those were from that loan. And originally, again, that was $8,200. Adding that $300,000 equipment plus the building now plus obviously I'm building equity now that it would be over time rather than paying somebody else to build their equity. And then. So at the time, it was a very great financial move and for the company. And then literally, not even within 6 months of closing on that loan, inflation went to high heaven. And I had a variable loan, again, rookie mistake of things, which maybe it wasn't a rookie mistake because it was what I could get. And at that time, I was already getting told no by 20 plus people of getting a loan. So I took what I could get, and I still don't regret it, even despite my wife might think otherwise with all the stress that I was under for the last 2 years. But with that, obviously the variable loan side of things and the inflation we got, and I have a 10,000 square foot building, plus as well as a decent sized business that I had a business loan for, plus some equipment I've had to buy along the way. It was almost $2.3 million of loans that I have for the business altogether. And when you add inflation to that, it was between $9,000 and $10,000 a month, basically. That was extra interest for the inflation side that I was not. The company was it was eating away at the company.
And sales and maintain, they were about the same, but when you take
growing, actually.
Yeah, growing, but it wasn't growing at the rate that inflationary cost was, for the loans. Plus, paper was getting more expensive. Everything was getting more expensive. So.
Yeah, that was part of it too. Is that our revenue was growing. We were getting more sales. However, our cost was going up, and we were trying to bump up our stuff a little bit too. But at the same time, there's a certain level of not competition, but competition, I guess is what the proper word would be, is that out there that somebody could get it for cheaper, and you got to try to keep that in mind. And so it was tough because even the larger companies, they might have had inflation, but there's such a large bulk amount that they're not getting hit as hard as a smaller company that doesn't buy as much as they do. So That was a big issue that I faced, and thankfully, again, full circle with that situation is I finally got a refinance, and that is what honestly has now put us in a position now. And I already knew I was getting it because honestly, I brought you on in August, and I knew I was starting the conversation, and I knew there was a very good potential of this place that was going to do it for me, but it wasn't 100%. And then I think in November they basically said, yes, we're going to do this. It's just going to take time. There was a lot of with SBA. It's never a quick thing.
So when did the first one close? I know there's still one more to go, but when did the first loans close?
February. The first one was February. Second one was March. And then now should be hopefully probably this month, I would imagine.
So how many times were you told no before you got the yes?
30 plus times. I lost count, to be honest, but it's 30 plus for sure.
30 plus times of being told no. Finally found someone to give you a loan. Mm-hmm. Great rates, great, for the time.
Well, I was gonna say, great
for the time is good.
Great as it can be. Your net
it's not variable, so at least you're going to have some fixed costs.
Yeah.
During that time too, you also had 3 people leave the company.
Yeah.
That we had to, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Some of the adjustments that have been made, but so you got those loans closed. You got one more to go. What's this last one going to be for again?
So basically, what I had to do, the first loan I got was an SBA 504 loan, which basically bought out one of the big chunks, which is the one that I was talking about with the building, where it was the building and the $300,000 with equipment. Paid off that loan, and then what was the other one? Oh, it paid down a little bit of the business loan, a chunk of it. And then so that went down. Then the second loan was a companion loan of the 504. What you have to get the 504 first, and then to get this special one that we were able to get. And that then paid down more of the business loan. It was almost all we got. There's still a little bit left. So now this last loan will pay the line of credit I had to pull to keep things afloat. And then one of the pieces of equipment that I had to buy, that because one of our main components of our booklet maker basically went trash on us. So I had to get a loan to get a new one. And then the last part of the business loan. So this last loan will pay that. But thankfully, with the business loan, what I did do is I talked to the bank about re-amortizing now based on the amount that's there left instead of the larger amount that was initially. Right. So instead of paying that big like $9,000 a month payment, now I'm down to like $3,000 after the re-amortization with it paid down lower.
Yeah, and I think what's important for people to understand here is when you're doing this, talk to your bank, and there's so many things you can negotiate. The bank is in a driver's seat in a lot of ways, but they also have a lot of flexibility that they can do to ease things up and make it more palatable for you to be able to go in and get the loan, for them to want to give you the loan. And for you to be able to grow your business. So don't be afraid to ask for those things like the re-amortization. I mean, that's huge because now it resets on a lower amount as opposed to the larger amount plus, the time frame and all that. So
and then as well as with that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was it? What was the other
amortization?
Thing? No, something payment. Else that I just when I was going to these banks to get the payoffs and things like that, this last loan, what I've been dealing with is I don't have enough to pay them all off. So they said is talk to the banks and see if they would accept a lower payoff balance. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that was a thing. So so 2 of them said no, but the one of them they knocked off it was like 10 to 15, 20K or something. I can't remember the exact amount that they knocked off, but it was a good chunk. That they knocked off of the original payoff, which helped me now fit into the amount of loan that I could get on this third loan to then now get it all paid off.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Or not paid off, refinanced.
Yeah.
And so that now getting all those paid down between now the 3 loans now gets me back to what I originally was paying when I first bought it back
Before
in December.
inflation.
Despite the fact that my interest rate is higher now compared to what it was then. But the fact is I've paid some down obviously over time. So that's helped that my payments are back down to level. And right now that's all I really need. I just need to make sure the payments are, so we can focus on putting money towards growing the company. Okay. And then we can eventually, now the one good thing too, hindsight too, is of that, now instead of having such larger loans, I have a lot of smaller loans. So like as we grow and like if we're doing well and I could pay one off really easy.
Yeah, if you have a big influx of cash, just knock that one out and move on to the next one. So that's awesome. So there's some other things that have changed over the course, since then too. And I think the best way to break it down is people. We'll talk about people. We'll talk about procedures, and then we'll talk about some of the technology, if that works.
If you want to start on the procedure side.
Yeah, and then you can knock out what's going to be happening in the future. Some pretty exciting things are looking forward. So. All right, we're back. A little technical difficulty. You're going to have that from time to time. So what I was talking about was, the 3 areas I want to focus on. Some of the changes we made were what we did with people, what we did with procedures, and then some of the technology that we've done. And then, we'll go from there. So one of the things we looked at with people was are people, do they understand their job and are they doing the right thing? Are they doing, are they where they need to be? And for the most part, the answer to that question is yes. Everybody was where they needed to be, doing what they needed to be doing, with a couple of exceptions. Number one was the owner of the company was not doing what he should have been doing, in the sense that your focus should have been more on driving the business, the sales, kind of setting the tone. But 2 to 3 days a week, you had to leave to go do deliveries, and so that pulled you away from those things you need to be doing. And so one of the very first things we did was keep you out of that. Now, there's still some one-off things that you go and do and all that, but for the most part, I think the biggest growth, the biggest change that we've seen is when you didn't have to focus on that twice a week.
Yeah.
I took on that role. I love doing it. I love getting out and going and seeing and talking to people. But more importantly, the fact that you're not out there doing it is huge. So that was one of the major changes. One of the other things is empowering the leadership of the company, particularly, in the production side. Getting, the leadership back there to understand that you have the authority and your power to get people to go and do the things that need to be done and prioritizing work.
Yep.
And when Kayla started doing that, we saw a huge shift in how things were getting out the door and how quickly they were getting out the door. And I'll talk more about some of the procedures we put in place here in a minute. But her focusing now on that has made a huge difference. And then in the front office with, how we were doing invoicing and who was responsible for that and the accounts receivable and getting money in, just clarifying expectations for those roles has been so huge, so important to make sure that everyone knows, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is how, this is how we want this to happen. Has made a huge shift. With that are some of the procedures we put in place. I can't remember when the conversation happened, but I remember there was when you look at the process for the print shop, you got, and correct me if I miss any steps here, someone calls like, hey, we need this. We get, it goes into, with the graphic designer, if it's not already print ready, we send out the proof, or even if it is print ready, we still adjust it. We send out the proof.
Yeah.
Once the proof is approved, it goes and it gets printed, whether it's on one of the big machines or whether it's digital, it gets printed. Then it goes to bindery. That's where everything is tied up and boxed up and cut and stapled and all that. then it gets delivered, right?
Yep.
So through that process, there were some places where it was getting held up. And a lot of our jobs have to be cut down to size. And we would have sometimes 5, 10, 15 jobs that were backed up because there was nobody to cut them. And one of the procedures that there was no procedure that says, here's when the cutting happens or who does it or whatever. So we decided, we're like, hey, the guys in the back come in at 6 a.m. and from 6 to 8 o'clock, we're going to prioritize these things. And I don't remember the order that we put it. I know cutting was number one. So if anything is sitting there from 6 to 8 that needs to be cut, that's the most important thing to do. On top of that, Kayla then knew I got to prioritize what's got to get cut because we have certain dates things are due and those kind of stuff.
Maybe it takes a couple different steps to finish it out.
Because I didn't know you didn't just put it in there, line it up, and cut it. Like you got to program it. You got to program the machine, and the machine automatically adjusts. Anyway, Wednesday we'll do a video like exactly how that works. It's cool to watch it cut, but I didn't know there were so many steps to it. It's crazy. You can program it, and anyway. So, but when we started prioritizing that, like we would have one person and we would switch it out. Tomorrow, Josh, you're doing cutting. Chris, you're going to do, and we would go down the line of priority of what was important, whether it was folding, stapling, whatever. And because of that, I wish there was a way to track the percentage of how much more efficient we got. But it was just like, I don't think we've ever had to wait. Maybe once or twice in the past 6 months that we've had to wait for something to be cut.
Yeah.
Because of that one small change.
Yeah. Well, and some of this too is because of how lean we are right now, where it's become more of an issue that we had to try to shift that because normally we would have somebody that's like their dedicated job. But obviously we're running so lean that most of the people in the back, they have multiple job duties and they rotate around to wherever what's needed,
Well, yeah. And again, it comes down to prioritizing. I can't fold it until you cut it. I can't fold it. I can't staple it until it's folded, until it's cut. But it all comes back to that first step.
Yep.
And I think identifying that and putting that in place, that was a huge procedural change. Another one that's been huge, and this is going to kind of tie into the technology. Well, before I get to that, just with the deliveries, we made some very minor tweaks to the delivery process, from all the way from how we fill out the sticker that goes on the box to what happens when I come back from deliveries. I close it out in the system now, so that people in the front office know, okay, this has been delivered. It's time to move to the next step. So looking at all the different systems and putting those little, it's made it so much more efficient.
Yep.
And it's those kind of things that when you're looking at your business, I encourage people to don't just look at the big things. You got to look at all the small things too and figure out, how can I make this more efficient? How can I make this move quicker? And the other thing is the communication piece has gotten 1,000 times better. And I think some of that was there was some worry about pushback and not wanting to do things. But I think what we've all discovered is we all want to work together as a team and make it happen. But having these procedures makes that so much easier.
Well, and I think one of the things too that was because obviously, like I said, we're running pretty lean right now. So everybody's got a primary duty. However, that may not be the priority. It's this over here that needs to be taken care of. That it's in everybody that does this in the bindery side. So sometimes I think some of it is a fear. It was a fear on their part that I have my stuff I have to do. And if I go over here to help with this, then this is going to get behind. And some of that was just me telling them, listen, I promise we are going to direct you in the right path of what's the priority. And that's the number one thing for the company we have to focus on. Don't worry about what you have over here, because let us worry about that. Because I mean, I understand obviously it could cause a little more stress on you because you got to come back to this and you got a lot there. However, we're worrying about due dates, when people need things out the door, and that's what we're focusing on. That's why over here, this has like 5 things this is due next week.
Yeah.
You know, so like coming over here, don't worry about that. Like, we will guide you in the right direction. If there's something you know, communicate with us. If we're not seeing something you're seeing that's due in the next couple of days.
Yeah, like if it's going to take 5 days to do this thing. Yeah, you know, there's a couple of really good examples that, I mean, it happened basically back to back too. There was that envelope stuffing we had to do. There was it was like multiple steps to it, and it was a mailing that needed like
3 flyers.
3 flyers and a magnet and you know,
and then the booklet.
Yeah, and what
and then the envelope.
And an envelope, and then it had to be mailed.
And it had to be addressed on the envelope.
And I think what ended up happening is the way it worked out is, instead of waiting for all of the stuff to be ready, we did it in phases. We made the stacks of paper that had to go on the envelopes while we were waiting on the envelopes to be printed. And then once we got the envelopes, we stuffed them in there, but we still didn't have the magnets. And then when the magnets got there, we stuffed the magnets, and then we had to seal the envelope. And so I don't think we would have been able to do that if we hadn't worked out the priorities.
Yep. If we would have waited for the magnets, we definitely would have got it done on time.
Yeah. And you know, and it was, and I'm going to tell you the other thing that was really important is pushing back against the customers. Like, can we get this tomorrow? No, there's 5,000 of them.
Yep.
We said Thursday, we meant Thursday, not Tuesday.
Well, they wanted, so we said Thursday initially, that was okay. Then they're like, oh, could we do Tuesday? And I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that one. We're going to do everything in our power to make it happen. I just don't know. I was also very clear. I was like, it's going to be a lot for it to happen, but we will do everything we can to try.
I think it ended up going out of date. It went out Wednesday.
We were like, because to deliver to the bulk mill had to be done by 3:00. And I think if we stopped, we didn't try to work harder because we knew it wasn't going to be. We worked up until about 2 and realized it wasn't going to get finished. I mean, we kept working, but we didn't. I think I did, because I had all hands on deck on that one.
Yeah.
So I think I ended up saying, all right, we're not going to get this done. You can go ahead and go back and work stuff up front. We'll finish this out tomorrow and get it delivered tomorrow. And then it was all done early morning the next morning.
Yep, it was done a day early, but you know, it was that level of teamwork, that level of prioritizing what needed to be done, and not waiting to get started. And then there was another one we had to hand wind all these booklet things.
Spiral stuff for on top of the world. Yep.
Yeah, and you know, that was just another instance of prioritizing work.
And our machine went down.
And the machine went down, but we figured it out. We still got it, you know, still got it done. So that was another procedure, and perhaps one of the most important ones. And this was a big change that's still ongoing, but we had to, you know, it comes down to retraining your customer base, is when we actually send out invoices and how we send them out. So I'm going to kind of tie 2 things together with technology and a procedure. So before, we would not send out invoices until basically the job was done, delivered, and out the door. And so that could be from when it was ordered, that could be 5-10 days later. And then, you know, then you add another 30 days on that. So, you know, by the time we're collecting our money, our suppliers are wanting to get paid for the paper and all that kind of stuff. And so we were already like so far behind that you know, we didn't have the cash flow coming in order for the cash flow to come out. So we had to change when we send invoices. Now, what that did was allow us to start the clock before the job was done, but they would still have plenty of time after it was delivered, because we're usually pretty quick about getting stuff out the door. The only way we were able to do that is because we started using some new technology. The system that we had was great for estimating print jobs, lousy at making sure people paid.
Yeah.
And so we found a workaround for it. We used another program. We started being able to automate the process of sending out invoices. There were some pain points with that.
Yeah. It was still great. It was better than what we were doing. But then we hit some issues with that was causing some issues with the current customer base, which most of them were totally fine with a new process. It was just, there were some things that
it was different than they were used to, and the notification system could be a little bit buggy. We started getting paid a lot quicker. We started, all that kind of stuff. But what it also did is it caused us to look for other solutions. And we ended up finding one that ties into our print platform directly instead of it being a third party type thing.
Which shout out to Kiana, one of our employees for, so we originally did actually reach out to the platform that we use for our estimates and stuff like that already, just to see if they do something, like if it did more than what it does. And they never made a suggestion on something else that worked with it at the time when we reached out to him. But then Kiana had reached out to him about...
It was another issue. It was some other issue.
There was some issues that we were dealing with. She was like, there's got to be some way to fix this on this end to make this work with the system we were using to send the new one that we were doing. And then they're like... And then that person was like, well, do you know about Plan Profit or whatever it is that it's called, or however it came about to her.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, okay, let's schedule a little time. Let's look into this and realize like, wow, this is amazing.
This is
exactly what we've been wanting. Because now at this other system we were working was, it did better for us. And was helping, but it didn't fully integrate with our system we were already using for estimations and stuff like that. And now when we actually did the demo of this, it's like, holy crap, this does like way more than just invoicing and things like that.
Yeah, it's going to do invoicing. It's a CRM. It'll help manage the process in the back, the production, so you can see where everything's at. And I think, honestly, one of the coolest pieces of it is the customer portal. So the customer can go in and see, how much have I paid? How much do I owe? What jobs have been ordered? And it like, here's your proof, approve your proof. So it automates a lot of the business. So
it has like and for ease of purpose, like, so we create an estimate, we send it out to the customer. It's just a reject or accept button. And then if they need a comment, they can throw a comment in there or whatever. Once they accept it, automatically changes it to an invoice. Okay, boom. Now that's an extra step we didn't have to worry about. And then now we go create the proof, and then we throw the proof in there. Now it's a whole different step. Now you got to go accept, deny on the proof instead of manually put it in an email, send an email. Now I got to do that. Now I got to go. There's more steps involved. This is literally just drop it in. Now click accept. Nope. Yep. And as soon as it done that, okay, now we're putting it into production. Like it's all streamlining a lot of what we're doing. And in that process, we can set up basically at that point of approval on the proof, boom, that initiates the invoice sent to them, net 30 terms start, and then they'll get notifications of delivery and all that kind of stuff along the way. Again, on our end, it helps, and even on the customer side, like you said, the coolest side for our side too, that this is obviously we weren't necessarily looking for this, but this is a huge thing for us marketing wise. But it has like algorithms within the system to know a customer's like history of like hasn't ordered these type of things in 3 months, and normally it's whatever, it notifies us on these things, and even like puts like a priority, like a red, yellow, green, whatever, signal next to it on what's the most highest priority of the things with all of our customer bases. Then it also shows trends of like, if my customer last year spent X with me, and this year it's Y. And then if it's a big fluctuation difference, now I can like, oh, okay, well, now let's look into that. It's a whole, like, it's crazy.
And what's amazing is this third-party software is going to show us reports that we can't get from, or we don't know how to get from the print software.
Yeah.
And it's just, when you have the right people the right procedures in place and then the technology to back it, you know, it gets, that's when things start to get exciting. So I know there's some other things, you know, in the future that are coming up. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? We're going to bring on someone else to help in the back.
Yep. So for first and foremost, what we kind of already started in the journey is doing with the CRM, which we never had. Then getting email campaigns going. We have some LinkedIn stuff going. Podcast. So there's been little elements. Social media now.
Yeah.
Media Minds does our podcasting and handles all of our social medias, and videography, like all that kind of stuff. And so, like, adding these elements of extra things that the company's never done. Like I said in the beginning, I literally took over it. I wouldn't say dinosaur, but it was pretty close to like a very old school print shop, which a lot of the print shops are very old school. I'm bringing it into the modern age now, where I'm getting to where it's more on the digital age, and to where we can now grow it easier in that realm. So now we're getting most of that stuff done, but there's still a lot of things we're missing on the digital marketing side, which, again, I always preach. I know we're a print shop and we do, you know, your print promo, apparel, signs, banners, mailing services. But in my opinion, as a business, if you're really going to do the most justice for your business to grow your business, you need to tie the physical marketing, which what we do, and the digital marketing, like what Media Minds does. So right now we're only doing a small, tiny portion of what you could do on the digital marketing. I am looking at possibly the thing we're looking at doing is bringing in a strategic partnership on the digital marketing side that will now take over all of the digital marketing side of things, and then they handle all that side, and we're basically able to focus on what we do best, and do all that kind of stuff, and they focus on what they do best, and then we merge those two to really help it really take us to the next level. And website, that's part of it. And honestly, especially talking with them in this whole process, without having a website, it makes it a lot more difficult to really get all the analytics and everything, because it's hard to see where everything's coming from for the activity in the website if you don't have it all set up and everything. And
so just to clarify, so we have a website, but we don't have control of the website.
Yeah, it's through, so for our promotional product industry side of things, they have their own thing. So it's not like it's like a general standard thing that they provide for all promotional product companies. As I said on other episodes, all promotional product companies we rely on wholesalers to do all of our products for us. And that goes for all companies, because again, there's over 500,000 products, too many machines to have. No way anybody has that kind of money to have all the different machines to do all the many different products that are out there. So each wholesaler has their niche that they have, that they do the different products, and we go buy from them. And so that industry as a whole has the websites with all these suppliers in it and wholesalers that we go to then pull all the data from, and they build the website out for it. We're custom building our own website now, to where we're manually putting in the products that we want on there and things like that, to where now we can be more control, more digital analytics that can become from it, and everything like that.
But I think you say 500,000 options. Like, that's mind-boggling for people. Whereas if you can pare that down to like the top stuff, I think people are more inclined to make a decision when they don't have too many options.
Correct. Yeah, and that's even like on the clothing side. Like, somebody they come to me and they want polos or T-shirts. I have access to 1,000+ different T-shirts, 1,000+ different polos. Then if you added the colors, different colors within those, I mean, there's like a multitude of different options that you could do. Sizes. I mean, there's a whole bunch of. It's a big world. And so, what we're going to try to do is like, okay, here's the top 10 of this. Here's the top 10 of this. Here's the top, and instead of making such a wide, because then, it gets very convoluted for the customer. And a lot of times what we do too, just to make it easier on the customer, because some of them don't know exactly what they want. If they know what they want, that's great. Perfect. I got it here for you. Boom, done. but some of them are like, I don't know. And so like that's part of our job to is, okay, give us a budget, quantity you're looking for, what's the theme of the event, what's whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have a general idea what you're trying to do, or just like you trying to be in the technology side of things of items, or just like a quick like a dollar item to hand out? Like what are you looking for? And we build out a presentation for them to with some options, let them choose from the options. So we try to do different things like that. But
Yeah, and that website's going to help with that a lot.
yeah. So we have really come a long way from literally when I took over, and most of the stuff was very like old schooly way. Now I still have a little further I want to do with even the equipment in the back. Our equipment still works, but I still want to eventually slowly upgrade some more things as we grow more. But I've already brought a lot of different technology of different machinery and stuff like that already in the back. That I've been able to add to now we can do more capabilities of things that we didn't used to be. So want to continue to do that as as we're growing more so that I can offer more for my customers, because we get asked a lot of questions. I'm like, sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah. Or you have to outsource
Or
it.
I have to outsource it, partner with somebody, and I'd rather have more control over it, because then, especially time frames, like as much as we usually try to deliver within 3 to 7 business days, a lot of our customers might need it within a little quicker sometimes. Yeah. And when you're outsourcing to get it done or partnering with somebody, you're relying on their time frames instead of
because you don't know what other jobs they have in the shoot and all that kind of stuff. So.
Exactly. Yep.
And so for everyone else out there, like, don't wait till the last minute to order shit.
Yes, as much as you can, please.
Give us a week or two.
Pre-plan, that'd be great. And plus, if you're getting a promotional item or anything like, or a specialty item that we do have to partner with somebody that has a niche to do that, usually 2 weeks or less, depending. That's standard, especially promo. That's pretty standard. Sometimes quicker.
Yeah, because a lot of times that stuff might come from overseas or
no, not typically.
Like the actual item, but then it gets over here if they don't have it. Depending on what it is, I would imagine.
Well, so the wholesalers, obviously, I mean, they get their items from overseas, but they hold stock of the blank item, the blank items there at their warehouses, and then they do the printing and then shipping to us.
Now, the wholesalers, do they specialize in I can't imagine that one wholesaler could have all 500,000 items.
No. So that's what I'm saying. Each wholesaler has their niches. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a big one in St. Pete that we use a lot. They have a good chunk of different items that they carry, but they don't even still do everything. And there's also some that just literally only do this one niche. So like trying to think. There's one company that I was looking at doing for coasters, like your bar coasters, your little thin ones. They do that 24/7. Like that's the only thing they do, but they have so much volume that they do that they can just rely on just doing that alone. And so you have certain ones that just niche it out, but then you have the large, ginormous ones that have multiple products that they have. But so it just depends on obviously what you're looking for and where to look for.
So what do you see for the future? What's the next big step?
Well, just honestly, I want to. I think see how the strategic partnership goes. If we end up pulling the trigger or not, I think it's heading in that direction. But obviously, until it's done, I want to say yes for sure.
Don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, and then so that would be a huge thing, because then they're bringing their expertise on the digital side and really growing on that side, and then as well as just adding the more things to what we aren't already doing in the marketing side, and then finishing up that website tied in with that. I think it's going to just be exponentially grow us. Plus the system we were talking about implementing that has all the tools we need within the estimating, the marketing, and all that stuff. We're just now starting that literally like this week. Like we're getting onboarded and everything.
Yeah, I think there was the second call was yesterday.
It got pushed back to today, to tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, so that process is about to be implemented, so that's going to be a game changer too. And so yeah, it's just a constant. Right now, we're just in that constant like moving the needle, little bit by little bit, and adding each thing to the growth aspect of the company.
That's exciting.
So yeah, that's where I guess that's so. I have goals financially of what I want to hit and things like that. But I think I think getting these in place is going to be a huge game changer toward the point that I could see in the next year implementing these, if at least 50% growth, if not up to 100% plus
That'd be
growth,
awesome.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we shall see. I mean, I'm not gonna expect those happen because I've learned enough in my life that I've had to learn to be patient because I want sometimes those immediate like results, and it doesn't happen that way. So I'm also not. It's not an expectation. It's just a goal right now of where I really feel it's going to happen in that way, but we'll see. But ultimately, tie this back to, I don't feel any of this would have truly like come about and where we are at this point if my back didn't get slammed up against the wall with financial constraints. And so Steve Harvey, I'm sure you know who that is. And he had a quote that it's one of my favorite quotes that I've heard him talk about, but basically he grew up homeless in his car, and trying to go after his dream. And he had a conversation with God, and he said, if you make this happen for me, I'll tell everybody it was you. And he, shortly after that, he was able to get the opportunity he got in his comedic career, and then went on to be super successful to where he is now. And he tells everybody it was God that helped him get to where he's at in his life. And for me, as much as like some people, again, I think they look at like so many things and such a bad thing when things happen in their life. It's such a negative connotation that they have towards it, and they just focus on the negative side of it, of what is happening to them.
What's happening to me, not what I can do with the situation.
To get out of that situation and everything like that. And I feel like my back was put up so much against the wall that I had no other way other than getting out of that situation, unless I wanted to really get to the point where it was bankruptcy or something like that, which is not an option for me, and I don't allow that to be an option. So as my back's up against the wall, I'm literally maxing out line of credits. My credit cards are getting maxed out. All these things, I've stopped paying myself. Like all the things I pretty much can do. I've cut everything within the company that we didn't have to keep in place. And then also I figured out different ways of doing deals to try to get things moving. Where even though my website's getting done right now, I found somebody who's willing to do it for free right now when they have the time, and then eventually like, hey, let's figure out an amount of cost. When everything coming in off the website, once we get it up and going, you get an X percentage until you get paid off plus then some. I'll give you like an extra interest off of it basically. There's different things of navigating that way. But I wouldn't have gotten to that point if my back wasn't against the wall to be strategic, think of like, what I need to implement, I need to change this, I need to bring somebody like you to like help me get stuff off my plate to get the things done I couldn't get done that I knew needed to be done because I was doing too much within the business. Comes back to literally me, that Steve Harvey video. When I saw that video, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm literally at my back's against the wall. I'm beyond stressed. Can't sleep. Can't do a lot of things. Like I'm constantly on that mindset, and it was driving me crazy. And I then had a conversation with God and basically said, if you do this for me, I'll tell everybody like it was you that really helped push me to this direction and get me to where we are now. And literally pretty shortly after that, we started. I had 2 people retire, which again at that time I thought it was another bad thing.
How are we going to make it without these 2 people?
Again, and obviously great people. I nothing obviously, but we realized, okay, we can do this with less people. Like we can make this happen. So that's less now on the payroll. And then shortly after that, I get basically from the bank, yes, it's going to happen. plus while we're still moving forward with all the things we were talking about, we were trying to do and change. So refinance is happening. Okay. Well, now one other person retires. Oh crap. All right. Again, seemed like a bad thing again. And again, amazing person. And I still wished all the people worked with me because I loved them, but then that's less payroll again. Yeah. So then, we can do this. We can make this work. We're running lean. Like we can still make this happen. And so now my loan goes back down from refinance back to where we were now. Now we're paying 3 less people. Now we're still making things happen.
And revenue's still going up.
We're growing now because, and then we meet Andreas and Media Minds, and that connection's made. Now we're starting the marketing process and starting this podcast, and everything has been like since that day that I like had that, like it's been one thing falling into place after another, and I feel like ultimately just that like feeling of like I guess asking for God like to basically help me get me out of the situation when my back got pushed up against the wall with all this, and instead of me just like giving up and just saying, well, I guess it is what it is, I'm bound to fail. I was like, okay, we're gonna do this, but I need your help. Like, how am I gonna get through this, all this stuff? And now we're in the point where now we're like talking about even more than I had imagined possibly happening with maybe a future partnership that's going to take us to even a whole new level that I didn't expect.
But now that you're freed up from some of the things you were doing, the deliveries and stressing about the payments and the loans and all that, now you can actually open up and see a larger picture, because it is, when you're in that, it's hard to see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important lesson for everybody listening today that's made it this far is, find the people, the relationships, the partnerships that can free you up to focus on the things that are more, I don't want to say more important to your role.
Yeah.
Because delivery is important. I got to get the product.
Yeah.
But is that the best use of your time and your energy?
Yeah.
Digital marketing or marketing in general, is that the best use of your time? And so find the people that are experts in those things or that can do those things to free you up to do the other stuff. And I think that's an important lesson today.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a good spot to wrap it up and end things. Again, I appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It'll let you know every Wednesday when these pop up, give you a quick notification. Also, if you're interested in being a guest on there, we love having guests on. Whether if you're in the marketing side, business owner, whatever the case may be, reach out to us, and we'd love to have you on. And again, till next time, let's grow together.
It's time to step up, yeah, it's grind time, no more letting up, no, running faster, further, no more running up, yeah, giving my all, no more giving up, listen to me,